when the government of Bolivia floated a resolution to the General Assembly to call for a World Conference on Indigenous Peoples in 2014. We didn't ask the Bolivians to do this. They just did it on their own. The original resolution just said that they wanted to have a World Conference on Indigenous Peoples, and it didn't have a lot into it. I was fortunate enough to be at one of the first negotiation sessions on the resolution. And you could hear the states right away chime in, saying things like, we like the idea of a World Conference, but, and then they started to water down and change the resolution. We weren't there for the rest of it, but what happened was that for two reasons. States were suspicious about why Bolivia would call for a World Conference in 2014. They felt that, concerned that Evo Morales was Evo Morales was up for re-election in 2014 and wanted to use the World Conference as something to help him get re-elected. Secondly, the United States and some other states objected to a World Conference because of the expense. It would cost millions and millions of dollars to hold a full-blown World Conference with PrepComs and everything and the whole thing. So they object. So the states watered it down for the World Conference to be a high-level meeting of the plenary of the General Assembly of the United Nations. So therefore, by doing that, it's not a true World Conference like the one on racism or the one on climate change or anything like that. It was just going to be a meeting of the General Assembly to discuss the rights of indigenous peoples. When I asked the Bolivians why Evo Morales floated this resolution, the Bolivians ambassador for Bolivia told me that Evo Morales, when he was running for election, promised to indigenous people in Bolivia that he would call for a World Conference, and that's why he proposed it. And Bolivia, their hearts are in the right place, but they really don't have the political weight to carry the resolution through to be a full-blown World Conference. And Bolivia has basically withdrawn from pushing. I mean, they're supporting the World Conference, but they don't have the political weight to carry it through. And the weight is now being carried on by Mexico since that time. Mexico has a far better political machine than Bolivia. Nothing much happened in 2011. 2012, the President of the General Assembly had to appoint a facilitator for the World Conference. In the UN tradition, actually by their rules, a facilitator for a World Conference has to be a state. It's not an individual, but a state. So a state has to organize the World Conference. However, we wanted, if they're going to have a World Conference, the UN has never had a World Conference about peoples before, ever. They have a World Conference on thematic issues like climate change, racism, whatever. But we never had one about peoples. This is the first time. So as peoples, we as indigenous people felt that this has to be a different kind of World Conference, because we as people with the right to self-determination should have an equal voice inside for this World Conference. A meeting was called in Copenhagen in January of 2012. I think, yeah, 2012. Where people gathered to talk about strategies and what are we going to do about this World Conference. And a proposal was struck to create a Indigenous Global Coordinating Group made up of all the regions, the 7 regions, plus the Women's Caucus and the Youth Caucus, to form what we call the GCG, to carry the indigenous side forward towards this World Conference. And that was so the people who attended it went back to the regions, and the regions then elected people, appointed people to be part of the GCG. Two from, originally it was one per region, but the North America, at our meeting in Niagara Falls last year, agreed to put 2 people on the GCG. And all the other regions followed suit, and all the other regions put two people on the global coordinating team. And the people were myself and Deborah Harry. At first it was Chief Randy Capizzi, and he unfortunately passed away suddenly a few months after that, and he was replaced by Deborah Harry. Where can I go from here? The
modalities.
Okay. Of course, the objective of the GCG was to get as much indigenous participation in the whole World Conference process as possible. And one of the things that we wanted to do was have an indigenous co-facilitator for the World Conference. And like I said earlier, in the UN rules, you have to be a state. So we had to lobby hard and get support from states for this process. Now Bolivia withdrew from being there were 3 states that were interested in being the facilitator. It was Bolivia, Ecuador, and Mexico. And, Bolivia withdrew, Ecuador withdrew, but then it was left with Mexico. Ambassador de Alba, who was very familiar to indigenous people because he helped us get the declaration through the Human Rights Council in 2006, stepped forward, of course with the support of the Mexican government, to be the state facilitator. However, he told the President of the General Assembly that he will not accept to be the facilitator of the World Conference unless there is an indigenous co-facilitator. And so he basically blackmailed him. Because there was nobody else who wanted to be the facilitator of the World Conference, and he was successful. He was successful in getting that. Technically, well, the resolution, not the resolution, but the appointment by the President of the General Assembly called them co-facilitators, and not co-coordinators, and not co-facilitators, because you had to be a state to be a facilitator. So he called them coordinators. But they were facilitators. It's just a play on words to avoid a fight on the floor of the General Assembly. So their mandate of and the co-facilitator, indigenous co-facilitator, was John Henriksen, Sammy from this area, and he was appointed the co-facilitator. So he had to work with Ambassador de Alba in getting through the modalities resolution. Modalities resolution is a resolution that outlines how the conference will actually work. And there was a lot of negotiations in New York, discussions with that. John Henriksen, it was a historic appointment because it's never happened before in the history of the United Nations. It hasn't happened since, actually. And they had to get through the modalities resolution. Modalities resolution is what said that the dates of the World Conference will be Monday, September 22nd, and the afternoon of September 23rd, so it's a day and a half. It sets out that there will be, I think, 3 panels and 1 roundtable discussion or something like that. I can't remember exactly. It also sets out that indigenous people will be allowed to participate on a you don't have to be an NGO or registered NGO or anything like that, but indigenous people will be allowed to apply to participate on a non-objection basis, which means if states don't object to your presence, then you can take part. That's also very unusual for the UN to allow non-NGOs to take part in a high-level meeting of the General Assembly. Regular registered NGOs can also take part. And also, it said that the most important part of a World Conference, by the way, is the outcome document. Every World Conference has an outcome document. It's generally a political statement and a plan of action. And that's the most important part because a General Assembly meeting is the same as a General Assembly resolution that comes out is binding to all the states in the UN. So it's actually stronger than the UN Declaration in that sense. It's binding. So states are extremely jealous and don't usually allow non-state players to be involved in the outcome document. In this case, in the modality resolution, it does state that indigenous people have to be consulted in the outcome document. So it doesn't give us an equal say in the thing, but it does mean that we do have some voice or some influence on the outcome document. But I just want to emphasize to everybody, but that's the most important part of the World Conference is the outcome document. The other things that were in the modalities resolution was three indigenous people will be allowed to address the General Assembly. And who and how that's going to be, that's going to be an interesting fight to see who those three are going to be. That they will be able to address the General Assembly from the podium. There will be 4 panels. I think 3 panels and an interactive dialogue. Yeah. And these 4 are going to be based on the 4 themes that we're discussing. And each panel will discuss one theme, whatever those themes are. Each panel will be discussing those themes. In those panels, there'll be there'll be 2 co-chairs, one in probably 1 state and 1 indigenous co-chair. And also, whoever the panelists are, there'll be a number of indigenous people on each of those panels. And also, indigenous people will be able to take the floor during those discussions. However, the opportunity to speak will be very, 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 very limited. And the modalities resolution, I think that's all I can remember. I might have left out a point. Guess.
Did you say that the outcome document will be stronger than the declaration?
Well, what I mean is it's binding.
Whereas the declaration is not binding.
In that sense. In that sense. I think the rights inside the declaration are binding in other instruments. But the declaration is a declaration. It's not legally speaking, it's not binding. But a General Assembly resolution is binding to the states. Whether the states will abide by it is another matter. You have all kinds of resolutions. For instance, Security Council resolutions like Israel should return all occupied lands back to the Palestinians. Well, they haven't done that, but they're supposed to. They're supposed to do that. That's 2 points.
If you would go back and just review once more for all the folks on how the co-facilitator, the title, and how it was named. There was a question about why was it titled Indigenous Facilitator, or why was it not titled Indigenous Peoples Facilitator? And I think that you could help us to understand that the position that Mr. Hendrickson has.
Yeah, I can't remember. I answered that before. Why wasn't it called Indigenous Peoples Facilitator?
The title now is Indigenous Facilitator, correct?
Yeah,
it's not Indigenous Peoples.
No, because he's not appointed by the indigenous people. He's appointed by the President of the General Assembly. He's not our. We nominated him. I mean, except for North America, everybody else nominated him to be the indigenous co-facilitator. But it's the President of the General Assembly that appoints him, and he was responsible to the President. He was not responsible to us.
His title is again.
Pardon?
His title again is?
It was a co-facilitator, or a co-coordinator actually.
Exactly, precisely. It's Indigenous co-facilitator.
Yeah, he's an indigenous person.
Not Indigenous Peoples co-facilitator.
That's right.
All right.
But he's not our co-facilitator. He's the UN's co-facilitator.
One of the questions, Ken, that I know that's been asked of me is, how were the themes? Who came up with the theme? What was the process for the themes that we're addressing?
But the same process as we do for the outcome document that has to be negotiated. There will be, and that's going to happen soon.
The themes do not change. The theme, the outcome document, there's a number for 4 themes.
The themes will be decided first, because the themes have to be decided very soon, probably in the fall, because there's a lot of work to develop. We have to develop a panel, the papers have to be developed, and stuff like that. The outcome document will be negotiated all the way up, right up to the World Conference.
Yeah, at this time, you know, at least for we're not asking for themes to be changed, but some people might suggest, can there be introduction for additional themes or changing the themes that we're working by in the outcome document?
Good, wait. There's, are you talking about the outcome?
The draft outcome document is based around themes, thematic areas.
Yeah.
Is that open for discussion for changing those themes? I'm not suggesting that.
No,
It's been
after
a question.
Alta, yes, I mean, it's all, everything is open for discussion. What we're developing here is indigenous people's position. This is what we want. This is what we want out of the World Conference. And then that goes, that'll be, then the states will be meeting, and then that's where the real negotiation starts between states and indigenous representatives will be hashed out.
I have a response. I was kind of wait until we get into talking about how the outcome document was generated and what happened in Madrid, etc. But to answer that, the idea was for indigenous people that the focus needs to be on implementation of rights rather than opening up the door for states to come in and try to redefine, like we saw the United States, assert again at the Permanent Forum a couple of weeks ago. So I can talk more about it, and myself, Steve, and Deborah, who attended that global drafting meeting, how the 4 themes were put forward. And there are basically 4 in accordance with what Ken just said, because there's going to be 3 roundtables where these panels were, and then 1 interactive dialogue session. My understanding is the states are also proposing themes. The United States did on the floor of the Permanent Forum. They may not be in keeping with the themes that we want to keep them focused on implementation of the rights that have already been affirmed in the UN, including the UN Declaration, but others as well, rather than redefinition or diminishment of those rights. So that's, I think, why those themes focusing on implementation were generated out of the collective input of all the regions and the Women's News Caucus at the drafting meeting. But we can talk about that more when we talk about Madrid, and we may want to come in with different themes, I don't know, but this is right now the collective work product of all the regions.
Okay, now, at this point in time, there is no state facilitator or indigenous co-facilitator. Once the modalities resolution was completed and voted on and approved by the UN General Assembly last September, the new president of the General Assembly, who's from Serbia, has not appointed a state facilitator or an indigenous co-facilitator. The reasoning is that the guy from Serbia is not favorable to having an indigenous co-facilitator. It's politics. New York is all about politics. And Serbia is heavily influenced by Russia. Russia is very hostile to indigenous rights, a little hostile to the World Conference, very hostile to John Henriksen. And so Serbia is under the influence of Russia, is reluctant. The President of the General Assembly is reluctant to put in an indigenous co-facilitator. So the states have told us, Mexico in particular has said, we're not going to push for a facilitator for the World Conference. We'll wait for the next President of the General Assembly, who will be appointed in the middle of September. He's coming from the Caribbean, and he's very friendly, and he will be willing to appoint an indigenous co-facilitator. So when that time comes, in the fall, then a new state facilitator will be appointed and a indigenous co-facilitator. Right now, the North American Caucus out of our last meeting, said that they will support John Henriksen up until we review the situation next March.